Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, a podcast dedicated to offering a growth mindset platform for us entrepreneurs, where we discuss everything from business, mindset, to life in general. I'm your host, Catherine Polsinelli, a business organizing powerhouse, personal development strategist, and owner of Agent Services Plus, a company focused on helping entrepreneurs just like you build, grow, and be courageous in their business. I'm so excited to have you with us today, so grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage and get ready to have some amazing conversations and fantastic takeaways. Let's jump right in. So hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on Real Chat with Kat. I'm so excited to have you here today and my special guest, so Meghan Dwyer. I'm so excited to have you here today. Please do us all a favor and tell us who you are, what it is that you do, and what you got you in the realm of your entrepreneurship.
First of all, thank you so much, Kat. I'm super excited to be here today. This is so exciting. So yes, I am Meghan Dwyer. I am a mom to two little boys. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. I am a certified financial planner. That's my day job, and where I help to coach clients sort of at all different stages of life through everything financially related. That's not just saving for retirement or budgeting. It also involves, thinking through like risk and thinking through estate planning and thinking through all these other different components that can impact your world, your financial life. And so that's really cool. And then what I also do is I host a podcast called Money Isn't Scary. I always say if I could start over and do life all over again, I would go back to school and I would study psychology and I would be a therapist, because I'm fascinated by human behavior. I'm fascinated by it. So the podcast is really my way of kind of marrying those two passions and interests that I have. So the podcast is not financial advice. I say this all the time. I do it all day long with other people. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is dive into those the sticky stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, the stories and the beliefs and the mindset stuff that's holding women specifically back, that's keeping us small. There's a lot of things that come into play there. There's a lot of cultural influences that we have out there, as well as, our upbringing, our stories, and the things that we've learned that really, I think, tends to hold women back. And one of the reasons why, the many reasons why I started the podcast was because I saw in my day job and working with clients that you could tell somebody, you could run their financial plan, you could tell them that they're like over and over and over again, till literally you're blue in the face, that they are going to be okay. And yet sometimes they still had a really hard time believing that. And that's because, right, they probably come from a mindset of scarcity. So I was very intrigued by this, and I wanted to kind of dig deeper into, well, if that person who I know, I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the balance sheet, I know I'm running cash flow analysis, I know that you're going to be okay. If that person can't believe it, there's something blocking that. And so, yes, that person has their particular story, but everybody has a story. So I really want to try to dive into what that is for me. And that's where I started with the podcast. It's kind of my journey. I started it during the pandemic. When I was lonely, I was spending money to kind of fill a void. I didn't quite know what that was, right? Online shopping, because that's something that that was, I think, socially acceptable in our world. And, and a lot of women do it. I know that I'm not alone. So the first thing is kind of, having the self-awareness around some of our behaviors and our thought patterns when it comes to money. And, really just all I do is just be vulnerable, and I share the stuff that I'm thinking and doing, and the silly kind of, ways that I approach money and the relationship that I have with money, and in an effort to help other women not feel so alone.
I love that. And I do think that is such a huge thing, that as a society as a whole, people get stuck in this scarcity mindset, whether it's, something that they've been through or the way that they were brought up, which is still kind of a taboo thing for people. I feel like it's getting out there more, that people are starting to understand that your upbringing and the things that you heard and the things you listen to all the time really do play a part in who you are and how you do things. It's on a subconscious level, so we don't realize it. So our conscious could be telling us one thing and we're like, no, I mean, like, I want to be rich, I want money, however, you still have this subconscious belief that's deeply ingrained that's actually telling you the opposite, which can be one of the reasons why, and I'll let you elaborate on how you feel, but I feel like it's the one of the reasons why people who do get money or get money fast tend to blow it all, right? They tend to spend it really quick, because while they want it on a subconscious level, which to me, I say is like your shallow level, your deep rooted understanding and belief system is telling you the opposite. So it's wanting to do what it's used to doing, which is not having it.
Absolutely. I think there's a few layers to this, right? So you're absolutely right that there's that underlying belief that money doesn't grow on trees, and or whatever the story is for you, right? Like, what I just spend what comes in, I live paycheck to paycheck, whatever the story is, and we've all heard these things, right? Then there's another layer to this where I really think that when it comes to how we earn our dollars and how we spend our dollars, I think we just go through the motions oftentimes. I think culture sort of just teaches us that, like, we should have the house and the family and the white picket fence and all these things, but it's not what we really want, right? So I think a lot of the issues around money also, the mindset around money is that we're not intentional about it. Right. We just do things because we think that this is what we should be doing. Or maybe we are trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? Like the neighbor, the family down the street, or whoever it is, because we want what they have. So I think the real work here is in kind of slowing down and figuring out why it is that you want that thing, because it's never about the thing. It's the feeling behind that thing. It's the feeling that we're looking for, not the actual item itself.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with that, because so many times, with people that I talk with, when you ask them the question of, like, what are your goals, right? People tend to give you kind of like this big elaborate money goal. That tends to be like the first thing that you hear people say, right? Well, I want to be a millionaire. And when you start actually like really asking questions like, okay, why do you want to do that?
Right.
What would you plan on doing with it? That's when you find people getting stuck. And I think that does come back to social media and the news and all the TV shows, reality TV shows. I hate reality TV shows. I am that person. But it creates this life on a pedestal that we feel like we need to have in order to be complete. Whereas if you really dive deep into the actual needs and wants of a specific person, you find out that, I don't know, maybe they're happy at $150,000 a year, right? And that covers their costs and that covers what they want to do. I deal with this with a lot of clients that are in the real estate industry that got into it, but honestly didn't get into it to get rich. They did it to put their kids through college, right? That's a totally different goal that needs to be set versus your typical person who is wanting to get rich off of it, right? So that they can have all of these things and all these extra businesses. Not everybody is looking for that. And even in the entrepreneurial world, your coaches, your mentors, anyone along those lines, they may not necessarily be looking to go the distance, right? They're just looking for, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is going to make me happy. But it really does take some digging in, or having the conversation with a coach or a mentor or someone else that knows how to ask you questions to pull things out of you that it's there. It's just not at the surface level for you to think of.
Yeah. And that's what I try to do, right? I just had a call with a girl who reached out to me, who listens to the podcast, just yesterday. And she was like, I've listened to you. I feel like the personality wise, we kind of jive. And she's like, I don't quite know how to what to do. She's like, I've seen budgeting coaches. I've worked with people before. I know what I have coming in and I have going out. This is more behavioral for me. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is where it gets a little bit sticky, right? Because it's not the knowing the numbers now. This is where it's the believing in yourself. She needs accountability. She needs people to believe in her, and she needs to believe in herself, right? Like, so I think there's a lot there. And that's why the podcast is not about numbers. It's more kind of spiritual and psychological, because it goes so much deeper. And to your point, it's not about like, I want $1 million. Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. What do you want with $1 million? Like, that's that story that like money can buy you happiness. And I've done an episode on that actually. And to an extent it can. I mean, I think that sure, like, but you have to define what your happiness is, right? So, and that gets back to intention. If your happiness is spending more time with your family, and you will do anything in order to make that happen, then sure, it's right in your wheelhouse. It's an alignment. If you you pay somebody to clean your house, so you don't have to do that. You can take the time, that time that you've gained from doing that, and you go spend it with your kids. It's like that with all things. So it's like, in order to actually have things sort of to feel right, because if you have $1 million, you're probably, and you don't really know why you want $1 million, you just want to say you have $1 million, just maybe to kind of keep up. It's not fulfilling enough. It's kind of empty, right? And so I think if you say, I want $1 million, instead you say, like, just as an example, like, I want $1 million because I want to start a charity. I want to donate more to this organization. I want to change people's lives, whatever it is. Awesome. But everybody kind of needs a why. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you think about it, your prime example for those that, have a ton of money, but aren't fulfilled. If you look at actors and actresses, like, that's a huge one, right? People that are in the celebrity world. How many people have we seen that have all of the things, all of the money, the huge house, like anything they could ever desire, and yet they're still committing suicide? Right? There's still that fulfillment that isn't there, but they get so caught up in the materialistic things that they forget why it is they got into it, or what it is that they wanted out of it, and I'm not shaming celebrities, but that tends to be a prime example that, unfortunately their lives are plastered all over the place. So when you're looking at people that, have the money that everybody claims that they want, it's a perfect example that money does not buy happiness. Now, it, like you said, it can ease your struggle. It can buy you some things to make you happy. It can allow you freedom, which I think ultimately is what a lot of people are seeking. They just don't know how to define that. So they go to wanting money instead of understanding that it's the freedom to be able to do the things that they want to do, and that money provides it.
Money's a tool. Money is just a tool, and that's it. It helps you get what you're looking for. It shouldn't be the ultimate goal, right? Because money just allows us to be able to live the life that we want to. This conversation that I had yesterday, I was just saying, after the call, I sent her a sheet. It's a values exercise. So it's a 1-page thing that just lists all these different core values. And you first start by circling, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them, and then you narrow it down to 3 or 5 from there. And those that resonate with you, those are the things that matter to you, that are important to you. And that's what I think we have to keep remembering. Like, that's our why. That's what drives us. That's what gets us going in the morning. And sometimes that is what's going to make a difference in the way that we kind of approach all different aspects of our lives. And I really believe that the way that we think about money is the way that we approach it is the way that we approach everything. So if we have a limiting belief around money, like, oh, I'm not worthy enough to make this, whatever it is, throw something out, $100,000, then you're probably also likely, maybe going to struggle in other areas too. Maybe like, this having certain achievements at work or relationships or whatever, because that mindset is so pervasive, and it chops us off at the ankles. Like it limits us so much.
Yeah.
And that's what I see so much of, is women doing that to themselves, essentially self-sabotaging. And we deserve better. We don't need that. Like, so we can change the world. And that's my goal, is to ultimately kind of inspire and empower women by talking about money and talking about those feelings that are underneath money. Like, what is it that we're all searching for?
Yeah, definitely. And to go back to, when you were talking about the core values, funny enough, I just put out on my stories today a list of core values. So I'm reading a book by Brene Brown called Dare to Lead. And in Dare to Lead, she has these core values that she has listed out. And she talks about the same thing, about narrowing it down and really getting it down to, she suggests about 3. I think I had 4. I was doing good. But she talks about, having those values, but not only having those values as what you see in other people or you want in those around you, but in the values that you are willing to have the courage to keep true to yourself when you're putting yourself out there. And that right there, I think is even harder, because it's really easy to look at the values and be like, oh, I want this and I want this. And, integrity sounds amazing. It's another thing to actually live by the values that you chose and make that a part of your lifestyle. And like you were saying, as far as money defining people, I think that that's a huge problem as well. We tend to attach our success or our failure or the type of person we are to the amount of money that we have, we are making, or we don't have. And people don't understand that you have to detach that. You can still be a person who is in integrity, who is authentic, and be broke as hell, right? Like, it can be that way. And it may just be a thing that you're going through or stuff that you need to work on, but you can still be that person of value that you pride yourself in, and the money doesn't make a difference. And it's interesting that, you were talking about that. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and they were talking about just this, how, in America, we see people that have money as like, happy and fulfilled and da 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 da. However, if you look at some of the other countries that we consider to be dirt poor, right? A lot of them are actually really happy. They're actually really fulfilled. They're actually comfortable with who they are or where they're at, and they aren't constantly seeking more to feel better. They like the place that they're in. Now, am I saying that if they had more money, it might not, improve some of their situations? Yeah, no, it's possible. But it's a prime example that we in our society put money on a pedestal and use it as a defining factor, where literally, if you do look at other countries that don't have what we do, it's a totally different culture, but they are so much happier and so much more at peace. And I think that is something that we are definitely missing.
Absolutely. Actually, I was just going to say, there's a lot of studies out there that show kind of like what are the happiest countries and what are the happiest cultures and stuff, or based on quality of life.
Yeah.
Interesting to kind of match that up and see. I don't really know where the US is, but I'm assuming it's not up there. And in terms of kind of like our general happiness. Yeah, you are spot on with this whole idea that we think that money defines us. And we absolutely do need to separate ourselves out from that, because if we don't, we're always going to think that they're like money's infinite, right? So there's always going to be somebody who has more. There's always going to be somebody out there. And so if we're constant, it's almost like we're searching for something that we're never going to find, right? So we have to kind of take that bar away and be able to find our own ways of sort of valuing ourselves and feeling good about ourselves without having it be kind of based on those numbers, right? And this is where it does get sticky, because we weren't taught this. So this is the thing, like there's a couple different elements that come into this. first of all, we weren't taught it. I don't know. I was a child of the 80s and early 90s, and nobody talked about this stuff. I wasn't
Yeah.
just taught to believe in myself and to know my worth. And these conversations weren't being had. I'm so glad that they are now, but especially around money. Oh my God, like nobody talked about money. It's a shame. It's a stigma. There's so much there, especially women. Oh my goodness. Women certainly can't talk about it. Right. And that's another massive reason why I started the podcast, because women absolutely need to be talking about money. And we need to have our place at the table. But what I'm getting at here is our upbringings oftentimes didn't give us that like solid foundation for feeling good about ourselves, right? So we felt the need to kind of find it through external validation. So there's that, right? And there's that component. So if that's you, like, just know that you're not alone. We all deal with that. Then there's also the cultural impacts right there. And you had mentioned reality TV. Like, let's think about this. We are at a stage in life right now where we can literally go on Instagram, or we can turn on the TV and we can get a glimpse into luxury. Like, the Kardashians are everywhere. And so we put ourselves on this pedestal, or we put them on a pedestal, and we compare, like, we can see every single thing that they're doing and everything that they have and what their houses look like, what their kids' toys are, and all this stuff. And we compare ourselves. And it's just like, wait a minute, they're at a completely different, like, their lives are so different.
Yeah.
And so like we need to kind of just like stay in our lane here, and like, you do you. Like, we are never going to be Khloe Kardashian. And let's face it, do we want to be? Like,
oh God, no.
Khloe Kardashian is going through so much, right? I mean, I don't want her life. I just, the poor thing. So I just feel like we oftentimes just get so sucked into all of that stuff. And we also get sucked into cultural messages that, again, women shouldn't be handling the money. Women should be, like, I see this now because I have 2 little kids, and I'm a full-time, I have a full-time job and breadwinner and all this stuff. And I get these messages even from, the occasional jab from the mother-in-law, or it's just somebody that's like, oh, well, who's taking care of your kids while you're working, or, things like that. And it's, or do you really think you need to go on that business trip, or, things like that. And it's just like, okay, I'm doing the best I can here. And so we need to just sort of have awareness that culture is the way it is, that the outside world has all been sort of taught to think a certain way. And that doesn't have to be the way we think. That's not, for the longest time, I thought that I had to fit a certain mold in order to, I don't know, have people like me or feel worthy enough. And I'm finally realizing, like, no, just do you. Like, do what makes you feel good, because they're not going to be happy no matter what. So if they are putting these expectations on you, clearly, they have to deal with some stuff themselves.
Yeah, so definitely.
It's a little bit of a long-winded,
a little tangent.
But
no, I love it. But it makes sense. And it's funny. So I was talking with a guest several weeks ago, and her philosophy is, if you aren't paying my bills, and if you aren't feeding my family, and if you aren't helping me get to where I want to go, your opinion does not matter. And that is the way that it needs to be, right? And because of the way we were raised, or our parents or our grandparents were raised, right? They are stuck in that specific belief of women do this and men do that. Like, and it's fine, right? It just is what it is. But it doesn't mean that we have to continue it. And to be honest, it's not really fair to the guys, because I've met some fantastic men who are like the best at being with their kids 24/7. And they actually prefer that versus being in the world, right? And so if you have an ambitious woman, why wouldn't you want someone who is willing to do all of the things that she doesn't want to do, and allow her to flourish and allow him to be happy, versus having this stigma of, if you are male, you do this, and if you are female, you do this.
Well, it makes sense logically, right? That, of course, right? Like, you do what your skills are, you do what you enjoy doing, like what you're naturally kind of just lean towards. But it is it's a hard thing to wrap your head around because there's so much ingrained gender roles in our
Yeah.
society. And we've been cultured to do that, to
Yeah.
act that way. So I mean, you have to really, it takes, I think it's bravery in order to do things like that, to live your life in more of a reverse role, because you're going to get a lot of comments, I'm sure. And,
Yeah.
you have to make sure that you're comfortable enough with yourself in order to do that. And that's the game. I think, honestly, I think this whole thing is all about, again, it's not about the thing. It's not about the money. It's about our relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we're comfortable with it, awesome, more power to you. But it can be hard. And that's what I want people to know. This is not like a flip the switch and you're good. All of a sudden, I think a different way. This is a lifelong journey. This is something that we have to work at constantly.
Yeah.
Just constantly feeling like, or thinking through how we want to live our lives.
And I do think that stems from needing that external validation, right? Like even when a lot of us were younger, we looked up to our parents to tell us we did a good job, right? And so when they weren't proud of us, we felt bad. And so a lot of us have brought that into adulthood, and that goes along with feeling like we need to make other people proud of us instead of just being proud of ourselves. There's a gentleman by the name of Jay Shetty that I recently started following that I absolutely love. And someone was actually asking him, what is one of the things that you are most proud of about yourself? And he said, I am proud of myself for not being worried to be understood. Like, I'm okay with it. I'm okay if people don't understand me. I know that I'm not going to fit the box for everyone. He's like, but I'm okay with not being understood. And that is such a powerful statement, because that is such an external validation that we are constantly reaching for, right? That's the reason why a lot of us argue with other people, because we are so stretching and searching and wanting the other person to understand what we are saying that we get into arguments over it, instead of understanding that your reality is not the same as my reality, and the way that I see things is not the way that you see things. And if we can learn to understand other people's perspectives versus wishing that they only understood ours, it would make this planet so much more powerful and so much more defined.
Oh my gosh, like you are spot on. I mean, not to get into like the political aspect of it, but I mean, this divisiveness, right? In our country, it's like everybody just wants to be right, or they want to have somebody tell them that they're right and somebody's wrong. And it's like, if we could just be open to having, to being comfortable with our opinions, and to be open to having just intellectual conversations, and like, yep, you believe that, and I believe that, and that's okay, and I understand where you're coming from. The world would be a whole lot different. I mean, our America would be a whole lot different. I'm not going to go into a whole long tangent tonight. I mean, you can take this in micro sizes, like within your like baby steps in your life, or it's the same concept that just kind of makes it puts everything together. It just puts things into perspective, I think.
And it goes back to you being curious. When we were younger, we were taught to be curious. That's how we figured out what to do, what not to do. Don't stick the fork in the light switch, because we were curious. And it's almost like that was taken away from us as we became adults, because everything had to be so serious. But in reality, what I have learned is the more that I ask questions and the more that I seek to understand other people, the less frustrated I am. And a lot of times it also opens my eyes up to a different side of things that I wouldn't have seen.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it's like, it's almost like that thirst for knowledge. Like I just curiosity, right? I just want to see where you're coming from, because maybe, maybe that's valid. And so I think instead of closing ourselves off, we need to just be open and be receptive to kind of whatever comes at us, and be flexible and just roll with things. And I think it's hard because we can be, especially women, and especially I think moms and working moms and everything, we can
Mm-hmm.
be so rigid and so controlling. And I think we really need to let go sometimes and figure out why. What is it that we need, that we're seeking as through that control, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
always deeper than it seems on the surface, I think.
Yeah. It is. It is. And it truly does have to do with you being okay with constantly learning and knowing that the things that you were brought up to know may not necessarily be correct, or they may not fit your lifestyle or your personality. And that's okay. It doesn't make them wrong. It just means it doesn't fit you. That's the whole point of us being a diverse community of people, is so that we all have our own individual uniqueness versus being stuck in this box.
Yep. And again, I think the moral of the story here is continuing to be true to yourself, continuing to, like, how do I want to say this? Be kind to yourself, be, but yet hold yourself accountable, trust yourself. I think, I talk about that concept of self-trust. I'm somebody that my whole life, I trusted everybody but me. I held everybody else on a pedestal. I always needed validation or reassurance every time I was trying to make a decision. And it sucks. It's a shitty feeling because it just puts you in this cycle of insecurity and, not just, you're just confused all the time because you're like, well, I have this instinct, but I know that I'm wrong. So I should believe what somebody else tells me that I should do. And you know what? I think at the end of the day, that's like the biggest lesson for us to learn is just like, let's be true to ourselves. Let's slow down enough. As I say, like, let's hop off the treadmill and all the swirling, right? Like, let's just chill out, slow down a little bit. This is where mindfulness comes into play, and just ask ourselves, like, what is it? What is it that we want? Who are we? What is it that we even like to do? And let's, learn to like live our lives around that and taking care of ourselves. I think we get so, especially moms, so caught up in trying to take care of everybody else and solve everybody else's problems. Forget about ourselves all the time.
A lot, definitely. And we feel like it has to be done right then and there, or the whole world's going to catch on fire. When in reality, it could be done next week. Like it really could. I promise you, there's a lot of things. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, as we wrap this up, Meghan, I love this conversation. This is like, these are the things I could talk about for hours. I'm sure my listeners would.
Oh, I love it. I love it. No, this is why I do the podcast, so I can have conversations like this. It's awesome.
I love it. So before we kind of close everything out, do you have like a quote or a piece of advice that you would like to share with the audience?
I would say I don't have a quote per se, but one of the things that I think we constantly need to remind ourselves is that you are making a difference. I think this is one of my favorite things because I think on a daily basis, we get so caught up in the achievements and the checking the boxes and crossing things off our list. And we forget to just pause and realize that our existence, our presence, our just, caring about somebody else and just the world around us, we are making a difference in this world and we're making a difference for somebody else. And I think we forget that so much. So just know that you are making a difference to somebody in this world and you matter.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely love that. So where can everybody find you, Meghan, then? How can they follow you, like, share, get in contact with you, all the good things?
Yeah. So the podcast is called Money Isn't Scary. You can find that everywhere you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram, just at Money Isn't Scary. I also have a Facebook group called the Mindful Money Mommas. You can join that. And I don't have it ready yet, but I'm planning on doing a workshop later in the spring, maybe early summer, and trying to, just get out there and be more interactive and start talking to people. Because I know, again, we're not alone on this journey. And if we can build a community of women who are all sort of on the same page and like-minded around this. It's a really powerful thing. So I want to do my part there. So stay tuned.
Wonderful. I'm so excited. Well, we'll definitely make sure we put all the information in the show notes for you guys to be able to follow along and be able to connect with Meghan. I love being in her space. So thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. I loved having you as a guest and loved our conversation. To everybody else that's out there, I hope you guys got some amazing takeaways from this conversation, and you really do plan on kind of taking a moment for yourself, thinking about the things that you are going through or the things that you are rushing yourself through, to really see what is aligning with you and what you do enjoy doing. We do get in a state of go, 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 and we do need to be able to slow down and stop occasionally. So until next time, don't forget, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the change that it makes in your life. And until next time, have a fantastic day.
Hello again, and thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you absolutely loved what you heard, please be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review so we can keep the good stuff rolling. Got something you'd love to hear us discuss? Then be sure to message me on social media and let's work together to spread even more amazing content. And if you haven't yet connected with me on social media, be sure to follow along at Agent Services Plus. I'm so excited to connect with you on the next episode, and until next time, be sure to find things that help you learn, grow, and be inspired.